In the heart of a sprawling city where dreams and disappointments walked side by side on crowded sidewalks, there lived a man who believed that life's most precious victories were born from relentless perseverance. From an early age, he had been fascinated by the idea that every setback could be transformed into a stepping stone if one was brave enough to face the storm. His childhood had not been easy, days filled with uncertainty, nights spent wondering if tomorrow would bring a better chance. Yet even then, in the quiet moments before dawn when the world was still asleep, he nurtured a secret promise to himself that no matter how many obstacles arose, he would one day rise above them, not by chance, but by sheer will and unwavering dedication. He grew up in a modest neighborhood where the rhythm of life was dictated by hard work and the shared hopes of a community that believed in second chances. Every morning, as the city slowly awoke, he would step out of his little room with a mind set on carving out a destiny that was entirely his own. His parents, though burdened by hardships, had instilled in him the idea that honor and integrity were worth more than material wealth. He absorbed their lessons like a sponge, knowing deep in his heart that even if the world did not always reward honesty, it would ultimately be the foundation upon which his success was built. As he moved into adolescence, the challenges became more complex. School was not merely an academic exercise, it was a battleground where self-worth was measured against grades and social acceptance. In classrooms filled with both promise and prejudice, he learned early on that the brightest minds were often those who had faced the toughest adversities. Every rejection, every harsh word or dismissive glance only fueled a fire inside him. Late nights spent poring over books and scribbling ideas in worn notebooks became his refuge. In those solitary hours, he dreamed of a future where his efforts would not be in vain, where the pain of the present would be the seed for tomorrow's triumph. There were moments of despair, of course, when the weight of expectations and the sting of failure seemed almost too heavy to bear. In those moments, he would take long walks through the city's neon-lit streets, seeking solace in the quiet hum of life around him. The city, with all its imperfections, became both a teacher and a friend. Every flickering street lamp and every passing stranger whispered stories of perseverance and hope, reminding him that he was not alone in his struggles. He began to see the beauty in the ordinary, the extraordinary hidden in every small act of courage. Whether it was a shopkeeper greeting customers with a genuine smile or a stray musician filling an empty alley with soulful melodies. As years passed, his determination began to take shape in unexpected ways. He discovered a passion for storytelling, a medium through which he could channel the raw emotions of his experiences into narratives that resonated with others. With each word he wrote, he felt a step closer to the man he aspired to become. It wasn't long before he started sharing his stories with anyone who would listen, whether at small gatherings in local cafes or during open mic nights where the vulnerability of spoken word was celebrated rather than shunned. Every story was a testament to his belief that authenticity, however painful at times, was the truest form of art. The audience might have been small at first, but with every heartfelt tale, his words began to bridge the gap between disparate lives, touching hearts that had grown weary of pretense and empty. During this period, he encountered mentors, people who saw in him not just a young man with talent, but someone who embodied the possibility of transformation. An older writer with silvered hair and a lifetime of wisdom offered him guidance, urging him to be fearless in the pursuit of truth. Every great story, the mentor would say, comes from the place where you confront your deepest fears and embrace them. Your struggles are not your weakness, they are your strength. These words echoed in his mind long after their conversations had ended, guiding him when he doubted his own potential. They taught him that the scars of the past were not marks of shame, but symbols of the battles he had fought and won, even if the victories were small. The turning point in his journey came unexpectedly. One chilly autumn evening, while attending a small literary festival in a park adorned with golden leaves, he was invited to share one of his stories. The crowd was modest, the air crisp with anticipation, and as he stood before a gathering of strangers, every nerve in his body vibrated with the thrill of possibility. He spoke of the hardships that had molded him, of the nights when dreams seemed to slip through his fingers like sand. His voice, at first trembling with vulnerability, soon grew steadier as he recounted the moments that had defined his character, the relentless pursuit of a goal despite the odds, the quiet moments of introspection that followed every setback. By the time he concluded, there was a palpable silence, a collective recognition that something profound had been shared. That night, as he walked home under a sky splattered with stars, he realized that his story had the power to change lives, to ignite hope in hearts that had long grown accustomed to despair. With newfound confidence, he began to pursue his passion for storytelling with a fiercer intensity. Every day became a quest for authenticity, every encounter an opportunity to learn and grow. He traveled to places he had only read about in books, immersing himself in cultures and experiences that broadened his perspective. In bustling cities and quiet villages alike, he found stories that transcended language and geography. Stories of resilience, of communities banding together in the face of adversity, of individuals who, against all odds, found light in the darkest of circumstances. These experiences enriched his writing, infusing it with layers of depth and meaning that resonated with a wide audience. His words began to circulate beyond the confines of local gatherings, reaching readers through online platforms and small literary magazines. Slowly but surely, his voice became one that others sought out for inspiration, a voice that was as raw and unfiltered as it was compassionate. As the recognition grew, so did the responsibilities. With every new opportunity came the pressure to live up to the expectations of a community that saw in him a symbol of hope. He was invited to speak at events, to share his journey with aspiring artists and dreamers who were eager to learn from someone who had weathered the storms of life and emerged victorious. These moments, though often intimidating, became the crucible in which his character was further refined. He learned that the true measure of success was not in the accolades or the applause, but in the quiet moments when he could see that his words had kindled a spark in someone else's heart. It was in the letters from strangers, the messages from people whose lives had been touched by his stories, that he found. There were times, however, when the journey became overwhelmingly solitary. Despite the growing recognition and the support of many, there were long nights when the doubts crept in. In the silence of his modest apartment, with only the soft hum of the city in the background, he would question whether the sacrifices were worth it. The faces of those who had doubted him, the voices that had whispered that his dreams were impossible, sometimes seemed to echo in the stillness. But even in those moments of despair, he clung to the belief that every struggle was a lesson, every setback a prelude to a comeback. He reminded himself that the greatest stories were those that had been written in the ink of perseverance, and that the true power of his narrative lay in its honesty. In the reflection of his own eyes, he saw not the failures of the past, but the potential for greatness in the days yet to come. As seasons changed and years folded into one another, his journey took on new dimensions. He began to experiment with different forms of expression, moving beyond the written word to embrace the visual arts, to capture the fleeting moments of beauty that existed in the interplay of light and shadow. Photography, film, and even music became extensions of his creative spirit. Each medium allowed him to explore the nuances of the human experience from fresh perspectives. Collaborations with other artists enriched his vision further, blending disparate voices into a harmonious chorus that celebrated life in all its complexity. It was during this time that he truly understood the interconnectivity of art and life, how every expression, every creative endeavor, was a dialogue between the inner self and the outer world. In these moments, he found a profound sense of unity with those around him, a shared understanding that the struggles and triumphs of life were threads woven into a vast tapestry of human existence. Yet, as his creative pursuits flourished, so did the demands of public life. With fame came a certain degree of intrusion, a loss of the quiet anonymity he had once cherished. Paparazzi began to shadow his every move, and the media's appetite for personal details turned even the most intimate moments into public spectacles. There were days when the relentless scrutiny made him long for the days when his biggest worry was whether he could finish a chapter before dawn. But he had learned long ago that the price of pursuing one's dreams was often measured in sacrifices. The public persona, with all its glitz and glamour, was only a fraction of who he truly was. Behind the scenes, he remained that solitary dreamer who had once walked the quiet streets of his neighborhood, searching for hope in the glow of streetlights. He had learned to navigate the duality of his existence, the balance between the artist and the celebrity, between the man who spoke from the soul and the figure that the world expected him to be. There were moments when the weight of it all became almost unbearable. In the quiet solitude of his study, as rain pattered softly against the window, he would reflect on the countless sacrifices that had defined his journey. He thought of the friendships that had faded, the opportunities that had been lost, and the times when the harsh reality of life had threatened to extinguish the spark of creativity. But in those moments of introspection, he found strength in the memories of every small victory, the smile of a stranger who had found solace in his words, the heartfelt thank you notes from people whose lives had been touched by his honesty. Each of these memories was a reminder that while the path of authenticity was often lonely, it was also deep. The turning point that many would later call his renaissance came during a particularly harsh winter when the city was blanketed in snow and the days seemed to stretch endlessly into a cold, unyielding gray. It was then that he embarked on a journey not just of artistic expression, but of self-reinvention. He traveled to distant lands, seeking experiences that would broaden his understanding of life's myriad possibilities. In remote villages where traditions ran deep and the pace of life was measured in moments of genuine connection, he found stories that transcended cultural boundaries. In the quiet wisdom of elders and the laughter of children playing under open skies, he discovered a renewed sense of purpose. These journeys, both physical and spiritual, allowed him to rediscover the wellspring of creativity that had always dwelled within him. The experiences became the fuel for a series of works that would later be celebrated for their profound humanity, a body of work that captured not just the struggles of one man, but the collective heartbeat of a world in constant flux. As the years wore on, his creative endeavors reached a crescendo. His writings, photographs, and films were now exhibited in galleries and discussed in literary circles far beyond the confines of his hometown. He was invited to festivals and symposiums where his work was lauded, not just for its aesthetic beauty, but for its unflinching honesty, a mirror reflecting the hopes and fears of a generation. In each new project, he continued to push the boundaries of what art could be, blending the personal with the universal, the ephemeral with the eternal. His work became a celebration of the human spirit, a testament to the idea that even in the midst of life's most daunting challenges, there existed a reservoir of strength and beauty waiting to be tapped. There were times when he would return to the quiet solitude of his childhood neighborhood, walking the familiar streets that had once nurtured his dreams. In those moments, he was reminded of how far he had come, from a boy with nothing but a burning desire to prove himself, to a man who had touched the lives of countless others through his art. The memories of those early days, with their raw simplicity and unbridled hope, remained etched in his heart like an indelible blueprint of his identity. And while the world around him had changed in countless ways, that inner spark, the essence of who he was, remained as bright and resilient. Throughout his journey, he never lost sight of the values that had been instilled in him during those formative years. Honesty, humility, and a deep sense of responsibility to those who believed in him were the cornerstones of his character. Even as he navigated the complexities of fame and artistic expression, he maintained a steadfast commitment to staying true to himself. In interviews and public appearances, he spoke not of grandiose ambitions or hollow accolades, but of the quiet, relentless drive to create something meaningful, a legacy that would inspire others long after the applause had faded. His message was simple yet profound, that the measure of a person's worth was not found in the external trappings of success, but in the courage to face life's challenges with an open heart and an unyielding spirit. In the ebb and flow of public adulation and private solitude, he found solace in the knowledge that every moment of struggle, every hardship endured, had contributed to the tapestry of his life. His art was a reflection of that journey, a mosaic of pain and joy, of failures and triumphs, woven together into a narrative that was as complex as it was beautiful. The accolades that came his way were a welcome recognition, but they were never the ultimate goal. Instead, it was the quiet moments of connection, the whispered thanks from a stranger, the knowing nod from a fellow dreamer, that affirmed the true value of his work. In the twilight of his career, as he looked back on the winding path that had brought him to this moment, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. Every challenge, every moment of doubt, had been a necessary step in the journey toward becoming the person he was meant to be. He knew that the road ahead was uncertain, that life would continue to test him in unexpected ways. Yet he also understood that the true essence of his journey was not about reaching a final destination, but about the courage to keep moving forward, no matter how arduous the path. One crisp evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of orange and lavender, he found himself standing on a quiet bridge overlooking a gently flowing river. The water, shimmering in the fading light, carried with it the reflections of countless lives, each one a story of struggle, hope, and the enduring pursuit of dreams. In that serene moment, he realized that his own story was but one thread in the vast fabric of existence, yet it was a thread that could inspire and connect others. The lessons he had learned, the battles he had fought, and the quiet victories he had celebrated were all part of a greater narrative, a story that belonged not only to him, but to everyone who dared to dream and strive for something more. As he continued his journey, his creative spirit remained undiminished. He began to mentor young artists, sharing with them the wisdom that had been forged through years of trial and triumph. In quiet rooms filled with hopeful faces and eager hearts, he spoke of the importance of embracing one's true self, of the beauty that lay in vulnerability, and the strength that came from facing one's fears head-on. His words resonated deeply, igniting a spark of determination in those who listened. For in the raw honesty of his message, they found the courage to pursue their own dreams, unburdened by the weight of conformity or the fear of failure. There were long, reflective nights when he would sit by the window of his modest study, pen in hand, and write down the fragments of his thoughts, the quiet musings that captured the essence of his journey. In those moments, the world outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the unspoken promise that tomorrow would bring new opportunities for growth. Each sentence, each carefully chosen word, was a reminder that the journey was far from over, that the story of his life was still being written with every time flowed like the river beneath that bridge, sometimes swift and sometimes languid, carrying him forward into realms of unexpected beauty and profound revelation. His art, once a solitary endeavor, had blossomed into a living testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Galleries filled with his work became sanctuaries of inspiration, where visitors found solace in the raw emotion captured in every brushstroke, every carefully composed photograph, every eloquent line of verse. In the hushed admiration of those who beheld his creations, he saw the reflection of his own struggles and triumphs, a mirror that validated the arduous journey of self-discovery. One day, as he wandered through a bustling marketplace in a far-off city, he encountered an elderly woman who was selling handmade trinkets. There was a quiet dignity in her gaze, a depth of wisdom that spoke of decades spent weathering life's storms with grace and humility. In a moment of silent understanding, they exchanged a few words about the beauty of imperfection and the value of holding on to one's authenticity. That brief encounter, so seemingly inconsequential, stirred something deep within him, a reminder that every person, regardless of age or circumstance, carried within them a story worth hearing. It was a lesson that would later find its way into his work, a testament to the interconnectedness of all lives and the enduring power of shared experience. In the years that followed, his reputation as an artist and a storyteller continued to grow, but he never lost sight of the simple truths that had once guided him through the darkest of times. Even as the world celebrated his successes with grand ceremonies and lavish accolades, he remained humble, a quiet force who believed that true greatness was measured not by the accolades on a shelf, but by the quiet impact one had on the lives of others. His legacy, he knew, would not be written in gold or framed in glass. It would be etched in the hearts of those who found courage in his words and strength in his unwavering commitment to truth. As he reached a point in his life where reflection became as important as creation, he began to compile his experiences into a comprehensive narrative, a memoir that would serve as both a personal testament and a universal guide for anyone who dared to dream. With each word he wrote, he revisited the memories of his youth, the early mornings of quiet determination, the long nights of solitary struggle, the moments of joy that broke through the veil of hardship. The memoir became a tapestry of emotions and experiences, a chronicle of a life lived with passion, authenticity, and an unyielding resolve to overcome every obstacle. One particular night, after a long day of speaking at a gathering of young artists and dreamers, he sat alone in a quiet cafe, watching as the city outside pulsed with the vibrancy of life. The conversations of strangers, the clinking of cups, and the soft murmur of music blended together into a gentle symphony of everyday existence. In that serene ambiance, he realized that his journey was far from a solitary endeavor. It was part of a larger dialogue, an endless conversation between souls seeking meaning in a chaotic world. It was here, in these quiet moments of introspection, that he truly understood that the essence of life lay in the shared experiences, the common struggles, and the collective hope that united people from all. The memoir, when finally completed, was not just a recounting of his personal struggles and victories. It was a call to arms for anyone who had ever felt the sting of failure or the weight of doubt. In its pages, he offered not only his story, but also the lessons gleaned from a lifetime of perseverance. The importance of embracing vulnerability, the power of relentless determination, and the beauty that lies in the authenticity of one's own voice. The book touched countless lives, becoming a beacon of hope for those who had long given up on their dreams. It was a reminder that every setback was merely a prelude to a greater comeback, and that within each person lay the capacity for greatness, waiting to be awakened by the light of self-belief. In the twilight of his life, as he looked back upon the winding road that had brought him here, he found solace in the knowledge that his journey had been one of genuine transformation. The man who had once been defined by hardships and uncertainties had become a symbol of hope, a living reminder that true success was not measured by external achievements, but by the quiet dignity with which one faced life's myriad challenges. His legacy was not one of fleeting fame or transient accolades. It was a legacy of enduring courage, of a spirit that refused to be broken no matter how fierce the winds of adversity blew. One cool evening, under a sky awash with stars, he found himself surrounded by those whose lives had been touched by his work, a community of dreamers, artists, and ordinary people who had discovered extraordinary strength in his words. As he spoke softly, his voice carrying the weight of countless memories and hard-won victories, He urged them to never let the harshness of the world silence the light within their souls. "Each of you," he said, his eyes glistening with sincerity, "carries a unique flame within you, a spark that, when nurtured with courage and honesty, can light up the darkest corners of existence. Do not fear the obstacles that lie ahead, for every challenge is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to redefine what is possible. Let your failures be the foundation of your future successes, and let your dreams be the compass that guides you through." In that moment, as the crowd listened with rapt attention, he encapsulated the essence of a lifetime lived in pursuit of truth and beauty. His words were not grand proclamations or lofty ideals. They were simple, heartfelt truths born from the deepest recesses of his own experiences. And as he concluded, there was a collective understanding that the journey of life was not about the destination, but about the courage to continue moving forward, even when the path was shrouded in uncertainty. That night, as the celebration slowly wound down and the echoes of his message lingered in the crisp air, he walked away with a quiet smile, knowing that his story was far from over. It was a story that would continue to evolve with every new day, with every soul that found strength in his words. And in the quiet moments that followed, as he returned to the solitude of his modest home, he felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey. A journey that had taught him that life's most enduring victories were not measured by the applause of the world, but by the silent affirmations of a heart that had never stopped believing. In the final analysis of a life defined by struggle and triumph, he understood that authenticity was the most precious gift one could offer to the world. It was a gift that, once given, had the power to transform not only the giver, but also those who were fortunate enough to receive it. His legacy was woven into the tapestry of countless lives, a testament to the idea that every setback was a setup for a greater comeback. And as the years passed, and his voice became a soft echo in the corridors of time, the lessons he had shared continued to resonate with a clarity that defied the passage of time. For in every whispered conversation, in every quiet moment of introspection, there remained the undeniable truth that the journey of life was as much about the battles fought in silence as it was about the victories declared to the world. The man who had once been a solitary dreamer had become a living embodiment of that truth, a beacon for anyone who dared to live with passion, to strive for greatness, and to remain unyielding in the face of life's relentless challenges. And so, as the night deepened and the city's pulse slowed to a gentle rhythm, he closed his eyes with a heart full of hope. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to write another chapter in the epic saga of life. But he also knew that as long as he held on to the belief that every hardship was a chance to grow and every setback was a lesson in disguise, there would always be a reason to keep moving forward. In that quiet determination, in the steadfast commitment to remain true to his own spirit, lay the essence of a life well lived. In the end, it was not the grand gestures or the fleeting moments of glory that defined him, but the quiet strength with which he faced each new day, a strength born of struggle, tempered by compassion, and illuminated by the unwavering light of authenticity. And as the final notes of the day faded into the embrace of night, his journey continued. A testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, and a reminder that, no matter how long the road, the true measure of success was found in the courage to keep dreaming, keep striving, and keep believing that tomorrow would always hold. Thus, in the vast tapestry of life, his story was one of countless threads interwoven to create a legacy of resilience, hope, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Every word, every step, and every quiet victory was a note in the symphony of existence, a symphony that would continue to inspire those who dared to dream, to fight, and to find beauty in the raw, unfiltered reality of life. His narrative, written in the ink of perseverance and bound by the unyielding ties of authenticity, would forever serve as a beacon for those who believed that even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was a strength within that could never be extinguished. And so, as the world turned and the pages of time continued to fill with new stories, his legacy remained, a timeless reminder that the most profound triumphs were not the ones that made the headlines, but the ones that transformed lives quietly, steadily, and with an unwavering commitment to the truth of the human heart. For every soul that had ever been touched by his words, his journey was a living promise, that no matter how dark the night or how fierce the storm, there was always light waiting to be found in the simple, enduring act of never giving up. In that unwavering pursuit of hope and truth, he had discovered the essence of what it meant to live fully and fearlessly. His life was a testament to the fact that every trial, every setback, and every moment of doubt was but a stepping stone on the path to a future defined by possibility. And as the final curtain of another day fell gently over the city, he smiled softly to himself, knowing that his story, a story of relentless courage, heartfelt passion, and the undying belief in the goodness of the human spirit, would continue to inspire and uplift those who dared to follow in his footsteps. For in the quiet spaces between each heartbeat, in the soft glow of dawn after the darkest night, there existed the promise of new beginnings, a promise that life, in all its messy, beautiful imperfection, was worth every moment of struggle, every tear shed, and every victory celebrated in silence. And that, ultimately, was the most powerful